Have you ever wondered why the smartest, strongest, and most successful men still get tested by women? It doesn't matter if you're rich, handsome, or confident. Sooner or later, you'll face it. A sly comment, a playful jab, a question that feels a little too sharp. Most men brush it off as mood swings or just being difficult, but the truth is far deeper and far more dangerous. Because whether you realize it or not, these tests are not accidents. They are part of a silent, ancient game that has been wired into human nature for thousands of years. And here's the brutal reality. If you fail them, you don't just lose the moment, you lose her respect. And when respect fades, attraction follows right behind it. Think about it. A woman doesn't wake up in the morning and decide, "I'll test him today." It's not conscious, it's instinct. Just as fire burns and water flows, a woman's biology pushes her to check whether the man she's with can truly handle the weight of leadership, protection, and strength. She doesn't even need to think about it. Her instincts do the work for her. And here's where most men fail. They get defensive, they argue, they over-explain. They react with insecurity instead of calm authority. They panic at the first sign of friction, not realizing that this is the very moment when their strength is supposed to shine. A king doesn't prove his power when the kingdom is peaceful. He proves it when the throne is challenged. In the same way, a man proves nothing when life is easy. He proves his worth when he is questioned, doubted, and pushed. And if he crumbles under something as small as a sarcastic comment or a playful test, what does that say about his ability to handle real storms? This is why so many men feel like they're doing everything right, yet still struggle in relationships. They think providing, working hard, or being nice is enough. But women are not just measuring comfort. They're measuring strength. Not the kind of strength you show in the gym, but the kind of strength that comes out in your energy, your composure, and your frame when you're tested. Here's the kicker. Once you understand these tests, you stop seeing them as attacks and start seeing them as opportunities. Opportunities to show you're unshakable. Opportunities to deepen her respect. Opportunities to stand taller instead of shrinking back. And that's exactly what this video is about. You're going to learn the real psychology behind women's tests, why they matter, and most importantly, how to pass them every single time. By the end, you'll see the battlefield most men never even notice, and you'll know exactly how to win it. Because make no mistake, this is not just about relationships. It's about power, respect, and presence. And if you can master this, you won't just win with women, you'll win in life. Now that you understand why women test men, let's go deeper into what these tests actually look like. Because here's the truth. Most men don't even recognize them when they happen. They walk straight onto the battlefield, blindfolded, confused about why things suddenly feel tense. Imagine this. You're sitting across from her at dinner. The night seems smooth, the mood feels good, until she leans back, looks at you with that half smile, and says something like, "Why do you always wear that shirt?" On the surface, it's harmless, playful, maybe even teasing. But in reality, this is not about the shirt at all. It's about your reaction. She's not testing your clothes. She's testing your frame. Will you get defensive? Will you try to over-explain? Will you act insecure? Or will you stay calm, confident, and unbothered? That tiny moment carries more weight than most men ever realize. Because here's the biological truth. For thousands of years, women's survival depended on choosing men who could remain steady under pressure. Not just physically strong, but mentally unshakable. a man who falls apart at a sarcastic comment. He's signaling weakness. A man who laughs it off or calmly redirects. He's signaling strength. And these tests don't always come wrapped in sarcasm. Sometimes it's silence, the infamous silent treatment. Sometimes it's a random challenge. Why are you always so busy? Or, why do you talk to her so much? These moments aren't just random mood swings. They are instinct-driven checks, subtle ways of asking, are you the man who can handle me? Are you strong enough to lead without losing balance? Here's the harsh reality. When most men face these moments, they crumble. They panic when she pulls back, chasing her validation instead of holding their ground. They argue when she throws a playful jab, showing just how easy it is to rattle them. And the more they fail these invisible tests, the faster respect evaporates. But the men who understand this dynamic, they play the game on a completely different level. They don't see these moments as threats. They see them as opportunities. Every sarcastic comment becomes a chance to show calm humor. Every silence becomes a chance to stand confidently in their own presence. Every doubt becomes a chance to demonstrate unshakable energy. And here's the key. When you pass these tests, you don't just gain her respect, you deepen her attraction. Because deep down, women crave men who can carry the storm without breaking. When she pushes and you don't budge, something primal in her relaxes. She knows she's with a man who can handle the weight of life, not just the weight of her words. This is why I call these silent battles. They happen in the smallest, most ordinary moments, yet they decide the direction of the entire relationship. Fail them, and you'll find yourself endlessly chasing respect. Pass them, and you'll find that respect and attraction flow naturally toward you. And in the next chapter, we're going to break down the 3 most common tests women use, the ones every man faces, often without even realizing it. By the end, you'll know exactly how to spot them, and more importantly, exactly how to win. The first subtle test women use is the test of emotional control. This is one of the oldest and most powerful checks in human interaction, and yet, it's the one most men fail without even realizing it. Here's how it works. She'll do something small, almost unnoticeable at first, to see if she can shake your emotions. Maybe she suddenly goes quiet during a conversation. Maybe she takes longer to reply to your message. Maybe she makes a light jab, something like, "Wow, you really don't listen, do you?" These aren't accidents, they're pressure points. Now, why does she do this? Because for thousands of years, a woman's survival and the survival of her children depended on choosing a man who wouldn't collapse under emotional stress. A man who overreacts, who gets angry or insecure at the slightest push, is broadcasting one message: I can't handle the storm. And when she sees that, respect instantly erodes. Think about it. If you lose your cool because she took a little longer to text back, what does that tell her about how you'll handle real-life challenges? If you get defensive at a playful comment, what does that say about your ability to stay steady when the world throws actual chaos at you? The men who pass this test, they don't chase when she pulls back. They don't over-explain when she makes a sharp comment. They don't get flustered when she creates silence. Instead, they stay calm. They hold their frame. They let her little storm blow, and they remain unshaken, like a rock in the middle of rushing water. And here's the paradox. The more unshaken you remain, the faster her storm calms down. Because deep down, what she's really searching for is reassurance. Not through your words, but through your energy. She wants to feel that you're strong enough to remain steady, even when emotions run high. Picture this. You're sitting with her, and suddenly she goes quiet. The average man panics. What's wrong? Did I do something? Are you mad at me? But the man who understands the test, he simply leans back, stays relaxed, and carries on with calm confidence. Maybe even throws in a light teasing smile that says, I see you, but I'm not moved. That's the moment she feels it. Respect, safety, attraction. Because here's the hard truth. Women don't want to lead men emotionally. They don't want to be the ones carrying the weight of calm in the relationship. They want to feel that when things get tense, their man will be the anchor. And emotional control is the very first and most important test of that. Fail it, and you'll find yourself constantly disrespected, constantly chasing her validation. Pass it, and you'll notice something shift. She relaxes, she respects you more. And most importantly, she begins to trust your strength, not just with her, but with life itself. And in the next chapter, we'll uncover the second subtle test women use, a test that hides in plain sight and reveals whether you're a man of true value or just another guy trying too hard to prove himself. The second subtle test women use is the test of social proof and perceived value. This one is sneaky because it doesn't always come as a direct question. It often shows up in small comments, observations, or even how she watches you interact with the world around you. Here's the core of it. She wants to know if you're truly valuable beyond just what you say to her. Because any man can talk a big game, but only a man with real value has it reflected back to him by the people and the environment around him. Think about it. When she meets you, she's not just looking at how you treat her. She's watching how you treat others. The waiter, your friends, strangers. She's noticing whether people respect you, whether they're drawn to your presence, or whether you fade into the background. Sometimes she'll test this directly. She might bring up another guy. That guy at work is so funny. Or, my friend just bought a new car. On the surface, it sounds casual, but underneath, she's watching your reaction. Do you suddenly get defensive? Do you feel the need to compete? Or do you stay calm, grounded, maybe even amused? That's the test, because here's what she's really checking. Are you secure enough in your own value that you don't need to compete for it? A man who bristles when another guy is mentioned is showing insecurity. But a man who smiles, shrugs, and carries on as if nothing threatens him, that's a man communicating without words. I'm not competing. I am the prize. Another version of this test comes when she observes how you fit into social dynamics. Imagine you're at a gathering. She'll notice. Do people naturally gravitate towards you? Do you carry yourself with ease, confidence, and respect? Or do you shrink back, waiting for approval? Even if she doesn't say a word, she's gathering data, deciding whether you're a man who stands out or one who blends into the crowd. The truth is, women are biologically wired to seek men who hold value in the eyes of others. Not because they're shallow, but because throughout history, a man respected by others was safer, stronger, and more capable of protecting and providing. Social proof meant survival. And while the modern world is different, her instincts haven't changed. So, how do you pass this test? You don't force it. You don't brag. You don't try to prove. Instead, you focus on becoming a man of genuine value. Build your skills. Earn respect through action, not words. Carry yourself in a way that others naturally acknowledge. When she sees that, no words are needed. The test passes itself. And here's the paradox again. The less you try to prove your value, the more valuable you appear. Because real value never chases approval. It simply exists, and the world adjusts around it. This is why some men struggle endlessly for validation, while others seem to have it without effort. It's not luck, it's value. And when a woman tests you here, she's not being cruel. She's being instinctively honest. She needs to know you're the real thing, not just another pretender. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the third subtle test women use, and it's the most personal one of all. This test will reveal whether she sees you as a temporary distraction or as a man worthy of long-term respect and loyalty. The third subtle test women use is the test of consistency and integrity. This one cuts deeper than all the rest, because it isn't about a single reaction in the moment. It's about whether your actions and words align over time. And believe me, women notice this more than most men realize. Here's how it works. She'll pay attention to what you say you are versus who you actually show yourself to be. If you tell her you're ambitious, but she sees you wasting hours scrolling or procrastinating, she registers the gap. If you say you're calm and in control, but lose your temper over something small, she registers the gap. If you promise something and don't follow through, she registers the gap. And every time that gap appears, respect fades. Because here's the truth. A woman can forgive mistakes. She can forgive flaws. But what she cannot forgive is inconsistency. Why? Because inconsistency signals weakness. It signals that when pressure comes, you'll fold. And no matter how charming, attractive, or even loving you are, without integrity, you'll never hold her deepest respect. Here's an example. Imagine you tell her, "I don't chase drama, I don't play games." But then the moment she pulls back, you blow up her phone, begging for attention. She doesn't even need to argue with you. Your actions already failed the test. You said you're one thing, but you showed another. Another example. You tell her you're disciplined, yet she notices you constantly skipping the gym, eating recklessly, or making excuses. She doesn't need to call you out. She just quietly notes. His words don't match his reality. And once that seed of doubt takes root, it grows fast. On the flip side, when your actions align with your words, when you say something and then consistently live it, her respect multiplies. It doesn't matter if you're not perfect. What matters is that you are steady, reliable, and true to your frame. This is why the strongest men aren't loud. They don't need to prove themselves with big declarations or promises. Their consistency speaks louder than anything they could say. Their integrity radiates without explanation, and women feel it. Passing this test requires discipline. It requires self-awareness. It requires saying less and showing more. It means building yourself into a man who doesn't need to declare who he is, because his life, his habits, and his energy already prove it. And here's the paradox once again. When you live in alignment, you don't just earn her respect, you earn your own. And nothing is more powerful than a man who truly respects himself. Because women don't want perfect men. They want consistent men. Men who say what they mean and mean what they say. Men who don't crumble under pressure, who don't shift their values with every mood, but stand steady like a foundation she can trust. So remember this. Words can attract her attention. Charm can win her interest, but only integrity will secure her respect. And in the next chapter, we'll pull it all together. You'll see how these three subtle tests, emotional control, social proof, and integrity, form the invisible game every man is playing, whether he knows it or not. And you'll learn how passing them doesn't just win her respect, but transforms you into the kind of man who naturally commands respect everywhere. Now you see it. These tests aren't random. They aren't childish. They aren't even conscious most of the time. They're deeply wired into her psychology: emotional control, social proof, and integrity. 3 invisible filters every woman uses to decide if the man in front of her is worth following, respecting, and ultimately committing to. And here's the truth most men miss. You're not just passing her tests, you're passing life's tests. Because the same qualities that earn a woman's respect are the same qualities that command respect everywhere. A man who controls his emotions doesn't just succeed in relationships. He succeeds in business, in leadership, in every high-pressure moment life throws at him. A man who carries social proof isn't just attractive, he's magnetic. Opportunities, people, and networks are drawn to him because energy recognizes energy. And a man whose words align with his actions, who lives in integrity, that man becomes unshakable, reliable, a leader others trust instinctively. So, here's the paradox you need to understand. When you chase passing her tests directly, you lose. Because the second she feels you're trying to impress her, you've already failed. But when you stop chasing her approval and instead live in alignment with your own values, build your own world, and master yourself, suddenly, you pass the tests effortlessly. Not because you're trying, but because you are that man. Think about the men you've seen who never seem to chase, who never explain themselves, who never need to prove anything. They attract naturally, not because they're better looking, richer, or luckier, but because their very presence communicates power, control, and certainty. That's the level you need to reach. So the question isn't, how do I pass her tests? The question is, am I becoming the kind of man who doesn't even think about them? Because when you step into that frame, the dynamic flips. She's no longer the one testing you. You become the standard she's desperate to meet. Remember this, relationships are not about equality in the way society wants you to believe. They're about polarity. She can only relax into her feminine when she feels your masculine is solid. She can only trust you when you've proven, not with words, but with life, that you can hold the weight. And the only way to get there is by becoming unshakable yourself. This is why the tests matter, not because of her, because of you. Every time you pass one, you're not just keeping her respect. You're sharpening yourself into the man you were meant to be. The man who doesn't bend, doesn't chase, doesn't crumble. The man who builds, who leads, who commands respect without demanding it. So ask yourself right now, are you living as that man? Or are you still waiting for her approval to give you permission to step into it? Because here's the bottom line, respect isn't given, it's earned. And once you embody the kind of man who naturally passes these tests, you won't just keep her respect. You'll never have to worry about losing it again. And if you want to dive even deeper into the hidden psychology of women, the kind of truths nobody dares to say out loud, make sure you follow right now. For more raw, unfiltered insights like this, check the link in my bio where the full videos are waiting. This is just the beginning. The question is, are you ready to see how deep the rabbit hole really goes? And here's the truth you can't afford to ignore. This isn't about hating women or fearing them or painting them all with the same brush. This is about awareness. It's about recognizing patterns that have destroyed countless men before you and refusing to be the next casualty. Because the moment you close your eyes to reality, the moment you start believing, it could never happen to me, that's the exact moment you become most vulnerable. The psychology of women past 35 isn't a mystery. It's predictable, it's biological, and it's been written into human nature for thousands of years. The only difference is that today, culture feeds the very instincts that used to be kept in check. What used to be shameful is now celebrated. What used to be contained is now encouraged. And unless you understand this, you'll be blindsided like millions of men before you. So what's the final takeaway? Don't build your life on the shaky foundation of someone else's validation cycle. Build it on you, strength, purpose, leadership. Those are the anchors that keep you standing no matter how turbulent the storm gets. If this opened your eyes, then trust me, you've only scratched the surface. There are deeper truths, harsher realities, and strategies you must know if you want to survive and thrive as a man today. For the full story, head to my channel. Watch the complete breakdown. Arm yourself with knowledge before life forces you to learn the hard way. Because in this game, ignorance isn't just dangerous, it's fatal.